Order, Madam Speaker.
There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated. I'm not quite sure why there was such a lot of talking during the silent prayer or meditation. Honorable members, Honorable Chief Whip, let me firstly apologize to the House for starting a bit late. We had an issue that we quickly had to attend to with the secretary in my office. So yes, there's a demand, unfortunately, for PMDS to be paid, and a demand for it to be paid on the 26th. And we just needed to understand that today is the 20th and the 26th is still coming. So not quite sure where the miscommunication would arise. But the unions, we've met them. The unions are dealing with the issue. And let's hope, yes. And I've asked all of them for also part of their PMDS, because we also have our own levies that are increasing as political parties, so possibly there can be an exchange, Deputy Chief Whip, on that. But so be it, honorable members. No, the issue is being attended, and they have allowed us to deal with the House sitting. So yes, my profuse apologies. We are in the June month. It's Youth Month, and activities have started, and I'm sure that we will continue to commemorate the undying spirit of all of these heroines and heroes of young people, that not only of the past, but also that are continuing to make South Africa proud wherever they are. Let me firstly then take the opportunity to just acknowledge, I presume, I see there's an acting premier, sorry, an acting premier, Honorable MEC Meth, standing in. Let me recognize your presence and the presence of the MECs, all honorable members, the Chief Whip, the Deputy Chief Whip, and the leaders of the political parties in this meeting. Members, just as a reminder that we are still undergoing ongoing repairs to our ICT. We are still beset with challenges. We have instituted interim measures for the time being, so please do bear with us. So we've got a service provider to assist us in terms of our plenary, physical plenary sittings. We will now continue with our notices of motions, and I have received 6 notices of motions. I hope there's not anybody else that will be left out, but my order is as follows: is the Honorable Chief Whip, then Honorable Madikizela, then Honorable Anil Kumar, then Honorable Matkashela again. Usually Chief Whip deals with both of his motions at once, then Honorable Saziwa, and then Honorable Keleko, in that order. So there's quite a number of them that we will be dealing with today. Honorable Chief Whip, over to yourself. You will decide afterwards if you want to immediately deal with your follow-up notice of motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me take the opportunity and greet you and the entirety of the honorable members in this House, as well as the support staff and guests. Apology accepted, as you have just expressed it. Honorable Speaker, I move without notice in terms of Rule 130 that despite the provisions of the standing rules of procedure of the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature, that the House approves change on starting times of the House as follows. The 20th June 2023 for the House to start at 10. The 22nd June 2023 for the House to start at 10. Then the 23rd of June 2023 for the House to start at 10. I so move, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Chief. For honorable members, I put the motion without notice for adoption. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, once again I move without notice in terms of Rule 130 that despite the provisions of the standing rules of procedure of the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature, that the House approve the rearrangement of the order paper for the House plenary session of the 20th of June 2023 to now appear as follows. 1. Consideration of the report of the Legislature Oversight Committee on Budget Vote number 2. 2. Consideration of the report of the Portfolio Committee on Health on Budget Vote number 3. 3. Consideration of the report of the Portfolio Committee Social Development on Budget Vote number 4. 4. Consideration of the report of the Portfolio Committee Public Works and Infrastructure on Budget Vote number 5. 5. Consideration of the report of the Portfolio Committee on Office of the Premier and Special Programs on Budget Vote number 1. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable members, I put the motion without notice for adoption. Thank you. Yes. It's your time, Chief Whip.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Understanding very well that this is a motion with a notice which lapsed some time, and we are bringing it back again to give it life. Honorable Speaker, I move a motion with notice in terms of Rule 131 of the Standing Rules of the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature that this House notes that the right to have access to health care, including emergency health care services, is entrenched in the Constitution, in particular Section 27 for everyone and 28 for children of the Constitution. The House, without fear or favor, acknowledge the excellent work and measures that have been put in place by the ruling party to ensure that the right to have access to health care services is made possible. These have included legislative and administrative measures. That Section 27, subsection 2 of the Constitution provides that organs of the state, and this includes municipalities and municipal entities, must progressively put in place reasonable measures within its available resources to ensure that everyone has access to health services, especially in times of crisis. That Section 7, subsection 2 of the Constitution provides that the state must respect, protect, promote, and fulfill every right in the Bill of Rights. This includes the right to health and healthcare services. That the National Health Act is part of the legislative measures in line with the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, which South Africa is a party to, and that progressive and reasonable measures must be put in place to ensure all people, including the indigent, the vulnerable, and most marginalized, have access to quality health care services. Therefore, this House resolves for the progressive implementation of the National Health Insurance. The Department of Health attend to the shortage of staff, especially professional nurses at public health facilities in the province, including major state hospitals. The Department of Health attend to the shortage of critical resources at public health facilities, the Department of Health to motivate for the appointment of additional competent health personnel at state facilities to ensure the progressive realization of the right to health. This must be debated in the light of the health workers who passed away due to COVID-19 and retirement of the old employees. To receive accountability from the organs of government at the local and provincial level to ensure that competent oversight is conducted. To accelerate the gap between private health and public facilities, I so move. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable members, we note the notice of motion, and the motion will then be debated at a later stage in accordance with Rule 133, subsection 1. Honorable Madikizela.
Yeah, Honorable Speaker, I notice of motion in terms of Rule 131 of the Standing Rules of the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature. Honorable Speaker, I move in terms of Rule 131 of the Standing Rules of the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature that this House knows that the economic development in the Eastern Cape as measured through the provincial gross domestic product leaves a lot to be desired. Acknowledges the projections made by the Finance MEC, Honorable M. Voko, in the document titled Estimates of the Provincial Revenue and Expenditure 2023 or 2024. That the PGDP will be 0.7% and 1.4% for 2023 and 2024 respectively. Further acknowledges that as per the view of the MEC, the objectives outlined in the National Development Plan and Provincial Development Plan will not be realized. Finally, recognize that although provincial employment figures have risen, there remains a lot of work needed to be done to drive economic growth and combat unemployment. Therefore, the House resolves that the Economic Development, Environmental Affairs and Tourism Portfolio Committee deliberate on the matter and produce comprehensive report to drive economic development. 2, the Economic Development, Environmental Affairs and Tourism Portfolio Committee provides practical interventions to drive PGDP growth to beyond 2% and beyond 3% in 2023 and 2024 respectively. That the House gives timelines to the development, Environmental Affairs and Tourism for the development tabling off to the House and implementing of the economic development strategy. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Madikizela. Honorable members, we note the motion and it will then be debated at a later stage in accordance with Rule 133.1. I now call upon Honorable Anil Kumar.
Government must implement the broad-based black empowerment strategy, which actually emphasizes and promotes the role of cooperatives. The House further notes the government's draft cooperative development strategy of 2003 identified various models of workers' cooperative and formations in South Africa. Regrettably, Honorable Speaker, since 2009, out of 220,030 cooperatives that were registered, only 2,644 are still surviving. This indicates an 88% of the failure. Country at large and provinces are struggling to implement the recommendations by various portfolios committees in this regard. Therefore, to resolve, provincial government established a worker cooperatives support program mandated by various legislative structures. Government and its institutions must speed up the development of appropriate funding models for the promotion of consumer cooperatives and other types of cooperatives. Again, relevant departments must provide training and technical assistance in startups, expansions, buyouts and rescouts. House further resolves that the government should award greater points to cooperatives to facilitate preferential procurement from state departments. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Anil Kumar. Honorable members, we note the notice of motion, and the motion will then be debated at a later stage in accordance with Rule 133, subsection 1. Now call upon Honorable Saziwa.
Honorable Speaker, members of the Executive Council, or members of the Legislature, arise in terms of Rule 131 of the Standing Rules of the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature. That the House notes the following: that government has registered significant progress in addressing systematic challenges confronting the core business of the Department of Education. 2, that the House further appreciates that meaningful work to resolve gross infrastructural challenges facing our schools and the department as a whole is on a constant progress as means to efficiently support teaching and learning. 3, the House also must note that critical interventions to mitigate on teacher and learner safety, distance traveled by learners to schools, and provision of nutrition of our learners remain few of the many successful interventions pursued by this government in favor of the poor. That 4, the House must recognize the growing risk associated with government's sole reliance on the current scholar transport system, particularly noting the cost and safety of scholar transport, and therefore resolve: 1, government must continue to support the Department of Education in advancing quality and inclusive education in our province, where all children, despite their background, can acquire knowledge and skills. 2, that the Department of Education and Transport should fast-track the introduction of the automated scholar transport program into operation. 3, that the department must begin to explore possible ways at which the current scholar transport system can be altered in a seamless manner. 4, that the Department of Education accelerates the building of hostels as to minimize reliance on scholar transport. And lastly, that all spheres of government and departments must ensure that human settlements, particularly the new settlements are integrated to provide for basic services such as schools, clinics, playgrounds, community halls, etc. I so move, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Saziwa. Honorable members, we note the notice of motion, and this motion will then be debated at a later stage in accordance with Rule 133.1. Now call upon the last Honorable Member, Honorable Kaleko.
Honorable Speaker, I move without notice in terms of Rule 130 of the Standing Rules that the House notes that we meet today, few days after the whole country converged in separate corners in commemoration of heroic activism displayed by the people of South Africa in negation of unjust laws pursued by apartheid state against people in their own country. Recognize June 16 as the one of the significant days in the history of struggle for liberation that best enunciate the height of oppression and apartheid police brutally suffered by people of South Africa, blacks in particular. Salute the young women and men such as Kambule Godfrey and Joyce Adams, who at 12 years and 15 years old respectively lost their lives at the hands of the police fighting for a just cause, a cause for which people, despite their race, class, gender, can live in harmony and free from exploitation and discrimination. We applaud that this date is set aside to commemorate not just the day, but the resilience of the united people dedicated to attain freedom for all and for all times. Hail that as the Eastern Cape Province Legislature, we continue to salute the great compatriotic generation of freedom fighters who, despite difficult circumstances, stood firm in their pursuit for a freedom of all people. Remember that the 16 June Soweto uprising is firstly a culmination of concrete strategies and tactics to adequately respond and overthrow the oppressive apartheid of this day. Like many other similar events, was preceded by intense mass mobilization from all fronts. Appreciate that this was a countrywide protest in rejection of, but not limited to, Bantu education apartheid system as a whole. Affirm that in essence, our struggle against apartheid was a struggle in pursuance for equality and access to basic human rights. The former president of Cuba, Fidel Castro, further simplifies this epoch of our history by saying, open quotes, the revolution is a dictatorship of the exploited against exploiters. Therefore, resolve as people of the province and the country will forever remain indebted to the youth of 1976 as people's heroes and heroines, that we will continue to pursue our conviction through robust oversight, diligent lawmaking and public participation in order to release a united, non-racial and non-sexist South Africa of which youth laid their lives for. We will create an environment wherein young people can easily acquire skills and actively participate in the economy, and that not a single young person is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Kaleko. Honorable members, I put the motion without notice for adoption. Thank you so much. That concludes the notices of motions. Honorable members, we will now go to member statements. I have received 3 members that indicated that they would want to table member statements. That is Honorable Kasim, Honorable Kotoi, and Honorable Matkashela, in that order.
Honorable Speaker, this month we celebrate Youth Month, a month where we commemorate the youth of 1976 when they stood up against injustice and oppression. Honorable Speaker, today the youth of the Eastern Cape face a different form of injustice, and this time from a democratic government which has forgotten them. On Youth Day at the Guild Theatre in East London, I challenged a fully packed audience of young people to stand up if any of them had been the beneficiary of the Isikalo Youth Fund. In fact, so desperate I was, Honorable Speaker, to find the beneficiary of the Isikalo Youth Fund, that I said if any single one of those young people had been a beneficiary, I would give them my car. Honorable Speaker, I still have my car. Because the Isikalo Youth Fund has become nothing more than a slush fund for the Premier to connected cadres. And on the same day, Honorable Speaker, the Premier, flanked by his MECs, was in KwaZakele spreading a message of false hope to people of our province, claiming that 200,000 new work opportunities will be created through the development of the R75 from Motherwell to Kirkwood, done by Sanral. Now, Honorable Speaker, this leaves many, many questions for young people of our province, chief amongst them, and I know the Premier is not present, but perhaps the acting Premier, whoever that might be in the House today, can furnish us with these, with clarity in this respect. Question number one, where exactly are these 200,000 opportunities going to come from, and who is going to benefit from them? Who is choosing the beneficiaries of government funds like the Isikalo Youth Fund, which is shrouded in secrecy? Which communities in our province are benefiting from this fund? And what practical steps are being taken to ensure that ordinary young people, not connected people, Honorable Speaker, but ordinary young people in our province can actually benefit from public funds that are being funneled in this program? Until that is done, Honorable Speaker, it remains clear that the only way to get an opportunity in this province, or to, for example, be able to study a master's degree and an honors degree at the same time, is if you are a politically connected person or a political hotshot in this province. But for everybody else, you unfortunately are on your own and you are left behind.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Usually after your member statements, you indicate that you are done. Thank you, Honourable Kasim. Honourable Kotoy.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. There is a lot of excitement around the newly found investor friend of the province, namely the United Arab Emirates. The province recently hosted an UAE delegation, which included the president of that country. In making the choice of establishing trade relations with the UAE, has the Premier considered the fact that the human rights track record of UAE is appealing, to say the least? The Human Rights Amnesty International report for 2022-2023 noted the following. First, freedom of expression and assembly is severely restricted in the UAE. Article 184 of the Code of Crimes and Punishments provides that anyone who mocks, insults, or damages the reputation or standing of the state can be sentenced to jail for a maximum of 5 years. Article 210 of the same code provides that the punishment for participating in any public gathering tending to damage public security can be jailed, sentenced up to 5 years. Article 210, the same code provides that the punishment for participating in any public gathering sentenced up to 3 years. In addition, the UAE discriminates unfairly against LGBTI persons. According to the UAE law, consensual same-sex relations between adults constitutes a serious crime. Furthermore, on the 24th and 25th June 2021, the UAE authorities kidnapped, illegally detained, and tortured over 800 African migrant workers before deporting them. One of the victims, Kenneth Rupukane, a Ugandan teacher who was imprisoned for 38 days without trial, testified that they were brutally persecuted because of their skin color and on account of being Africans. Also, the police told them that they would not be allowed to remain in the streets of Abu Dhabi because they stink. He testifies that they were stripped naked in prison. With this brief overview of discrimination, brutality, and complete disregard of human rights, did the Premier consider at the very least that morally the decision to host and embrace the President of the UAE and his delegation flies in the face of human rights which our Constitution boldly upholds? Is this decision to establish trade relations with a country that has no respect whatsoever for basic human rights not a slap to the face of the Eastern Cape legends like Tata Chris Hani, Mama Winnie Mandela, Tata Robert Sobukwe,
Your time is
Tata
up,
Steve
unfortunately,
Biko,
member.
abalwe kanzima
Honorable
for
member, your time
discrimination
is up.
and the human
Honorable
rights.
member, your time is up. Thank you so much. Honorable Matkashela.
Honorable Speaker, as we celebrate Youth Month as a country, the African National Congress honors the role that the youth played in the struggle for the freedom that we enjoy today. It took successive generations to bring the colonial and apartheid regime to their knees. It was the generation of Mandela and Tambo who infused a radical nature into the body politics of the ANC that led to the formation of the armed resistance in the 1960s. The mowing down of our youth in the middle of the 1970s added further credence to the righteousness of the cause of armed resistance. Needless to say, this led to the swelling of the ranks of the armed formations abroad. The armed formations abroad, led by the ANC military wing Umkhonto weSizwe, not only contributed to the freedom of some countries of the SADC region, but also helped to push back counter-revolutionary elements that were sponsored by apartheid South Africa. The 1980s youth and their formation not only made South Africa ungovernable, but also contributed in the making apartheid unworkable, as President Oliver Tambo commanded. That decade of the 80s saw mass mobilization on an unprecedented scale in our shores. This is the decade that led to the unbanning of the liberation organizations, the return of exiles, and the release of political leaders. All this contributed to the start of an intense period of negotiations that led to our eventual freedom in the mid-90s. The freedom, in no small measure, was brought about by the unrelenting scores of our youth across the breadth and the width of South Africa. May the current generation of youth find strength in this and contribute in the reconstruction and nation-building project that is led by the democratic government. As such, as the ANC, we implore our government to continue prioritizing youth with programs and opportunities targeting young people. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable Acting Premier, you have 15 minutes to respond or to allocate to the respective MECs to assist you. Over to yourself.
Thank you so very much, Honorable Speaker. Good morning to you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Chief Whip, the Honorable members of the Executive Council, Honorable members of the Legislature, the DG, HODs, officials, and all people who are in this Okas House today. I want to request your indulgence, Honorable Speaker, lest I give less information, because I think the Honorable Kasim needs more empowerment and as such, we need to give him a detailed information on what we are doing as the province of the Eastern Cape to empower young people, in particular through Isiqalo Youth Fund. I don't want to stand here and give brief response, and as such, I ask that we provide a written response to Honorable Kasim on the work that the Office of the Premier is leading, taking from the work that was done by the day before Isiqalo Youth Fund was taken to was relocated to the Office of the Premier. It's unfortunate that had that audience, that is a fraction of the young people of this province, who maybe they are passive and are not willing to participate in the opportunities that are offered by this government, which is the government of all people, not government of the pearls of the politician, as he so insinuates. So I appeal that the Office of the Premier provides a detailed account to the Honourable Member on the work that we are doing as the government of the Eastern Cape, as it was evidenced and also attested to by the youth that was gathered in a tent that takes more than 6,000 people at Gqeberha, where the young people of this province chose to be united and have only one youth celebration or youth commemoration that is hosted by government, not by a political party that chooses to only convene few individual young people of this province. If you allow, we'll give that account in detail. Honorable Speaker, again, coming to the statement by Honorable Member from the EFF, who unfortunately I listened to her mentioning all the heroines and heroes that fought for freedom. I could not hear any that belongs to the EFF. But be it as it may, Honorable Speaker, just for the member to note that we are a unitary country, and as such, there are powers and functions that are only vested at a national level. So the issue of the international relations is a national competence issue, and as such, we have not had any call, even from the EFF, calling for sanctions to UAE because of what she is presenting here. Maybe it's a paper that she just read before she came to this house, because we've been having interactions, international relations, exchange programs, progressive ones, even as a province of the Eastern Cape with UAE. The visit of the president is not the first encounter of this province with UAE. There's great work that we've been doing and we've been reporting to this August House in terms of the exchange programs and economic activities that we are doing with UAE. So the issue of now coming to say maybe we should have been ashamed to interact with the president, it comes as a great surprise to all of us. Of course, we are a country that respects human rights. We are the democratic country that allow people freedom of speech, but at the same time, we must respect sovereignty of other countries. And as such, we are not partnering in terms of ensuring that we infringe people's rights, but we're encountering to ensure that there is economic partnership and relations in order for us to be able to export the products of the people of this Eastern Cape, and also to ensure that we are open to other areas of partnership with the foreign countries, respecting their policies, of course. Lastly, we want to wish to reiterate that UAE President's visit to the Eastern Cape was a private visit. It was not hosted by government. It is, however, our intention to explore investment opportunities as we have done with UAE. Honorable Speaker, on the statement by Honorable Maqashela, we note what we agree with him in the how we have progressed as the country, coming from those dark days when our youth was not taken care of, was not respected. It is for those reasons of trying to address injustices of the past that our government continue to respect the work that was played by the young people in ensuring that we are free today as the country, because it is because of the contribution that they've made in making sure that South Africa is ungovernable at the time when the apartheid was just ripping apart our noble society and our beloved country. So we note the statement by Honorable Maqashela, and I think, Honorable Speaker, all the Statements by the honorable members were just focused on the areas that are responsibility of the Office of the Premier, and as such, I won't give any MEC to say anything. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you so much, Honorable Acting Premier, for that response. Honorable members, just before we proceed with the next executive member statements, just to note once again, honorable members, that we have honorable members from the EFF, again sitting right in full view of me, that are not appropriately dressed in accordance with Rule 79, subsection 1 of the standing rules and the adopted dress code policy for members and staff serving in the House committees. Therefore, these members are also deliberately contravening Rule 106, and I therefore will refer this matter once again to the Ethics Committee to deal with them. Honorable Deputy Speaker, your task is becoming more and more, and that report is still awaited in the House. We will now continue with the executive member statements, and we are excited that this is one of the first executive members that have approached the Honorable Speaker to table an executive member statement. Unfortunately, Honorable Mani Lusiti, we could not accommodate you in the last sitting. Thank you for understanding. The WIPRI had already set and agreed on the agenda, but you are here today, and we will now allow you to present your statement for 5 minutes. Thereafter, each political party will then be allowed an opportunity of 2 minutes to respond to your executive statement. Over to yourself, Honorable Mani Lusiti.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Greetings to all the members in the August House. Honorable Speaker, on the 31st of March 2023, the Honorable Minister of Human Settlements, Mamolo Kentani Kubai, announced the policy changes on many facets of the departmental policy discourse. These policy changes represent the policy discourse of the department in fulfilling its core mandate. Amongst the many policy changes announced by the Honorable Minister, which were effective from the 1st of April 2023, are the changes on the departmental response to disaster. Honorable members, the change in climatic and environmental conditions have given rise to the natural disasters, which has had a negative impact on the livelihoods of the people. Amongst other things, leaving families homeless. The increase in the frequency of these disasters and the severity of the devastation requires a human settlements disaster response that is swift and appropriate for alleviating the plight of the affected families. Minister Kubai announced that we will also realize that the method of allocation of funds amongst the provinces was suboptimal, as some provinces are more prone to disasters than others. Working with the National Treasury, we determined that our response to disasters will be more effective when managed at the national level. This also means that the emergency funds will be available for deployment to affected areas at the time of need rather than being appropriated to a province or municipality that does not experience a disaster during the financial year. Close quote. As of April 2023, the National Department has taken over the implementation of the Emergency Housing Program. As a result, the Provincial Emergency Housing Grant and the Municipal Emergency Housing Grant has ceased to exist. This approach will enhance the collaborative planning amongst the 3 spheres of government in anticipation of disasters and simplifying the response so that we optimize funds allocated across the country and improve the response time. However, as provinces and municipalities are expected to ensure that they still attend to all outstanding households whose properties were destroyed in previous disasters and are yet to receive assistance despite municipalities and provinces having received funding for those disasters, meaning the national management will not be retrospective. As part of implementing the emergency housing program from this financial year, the Emergency Housing Command Center has been established to coordinate the national disaster response. It will have linkages to the South African Weather Service and provide the ability to receive early warning alerts to enable the proactive mobilization of resources to respond to imminent disasters. This will also link to the National Disaster Center and will not work in a competitive or contradictory manner. In addition, a disaster management team has been created that combines and leverages the skills capacity of the department and departmental entity, including HDA, the National Home Builders Regulatory Council, the National Housing Finance Cooperative. A framework that has been developed which includes the definition of the roles and responsibilities, the implementation guidelines, and the standard operating procedure. This team has commenced with its work from the 1st of April 2023. Instead of providing the temporary residential units for disaster-affected households, we will introduce a permanent solution through alternative building technology, particularly in our rural areas where mud houses often disintegrate during severe rainfall and households with stands already. This approach is more sustainable and cost-effective. Other measures will include the provisioning of vouchers for affected households to enable them to build their homes, but this time with the alternative of using new technology instead of only brick and mortar. Provision of building material for residents in informal settlements to rebuild in the same location or to relocate to safer land working alongside social facilitators, the provision of transitional emergency accommodation, which could include using various identified vacant government buildings across the country, can be transformed into habitable environments. This review of our policies will inform our long-term objectives and the tools we need to adopt to achieve these objectives. The fast-changing economic environment will also require us to find more agile response to continue providing our services in a sustainable manner. I thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you so much, Honourable Mani Lusiti. I will now allow in the following order, the DA, followed by the EFF, then the UDM, then the ATM, then the Freedom Front Plus, and then the ANC. The political parties are at liberty to choose not to respond if they so deem it. DA?
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'm not going to be long because we did not receive the statements in advance. But as an approach, centralization is not going to work. We believe that these plans should be centered provincially. And our province, whenever it comes to disasters, it is always caught napping. Every department is always caught napping. It is time that the province has a plan to deal with disasters, develop a comprehensive plan for all departments, because we are more prone to disasters. We are seeing disasters left, right, and center in places where we don't normally have disasters, such as flooding, our drought. There is always a problem when it comes to the response by our departments. So centralization is not going to work. It must not be done nationally. It has to be provincially centered. I thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you so much, Honourable Member. EFF?
Thank you very much, Speaker. Greetings to the leadership of the EFF in their beautiful red suits. We want to respond just quickly on this thing. It's wrong for us to find. It's wrong for us to find this thing here. How are we going to respond in this thing if ever we're not given adequate time? But we will respond. We are happy that the MEC is standing there saying that...
Honourable Vena, we know that you are still new. We do not point at other members. Don't even point at
no,
them.
no, no.
It's even worse if you...
I'm not pointing at you,
Please.
Speak. I'm just using my...
Yeah.
To get my point. Now, for an MEC to stand up there and praise the centralization, it's a problem. Because for national government to take over like that, it means that you are eventually put under administration because of you can't perform. When you say you want to, it's an emergency, it means that you move properly, like in an abnormal speed. But if you take time, it means that it's no longer an emergency. That is why national government is taking over. And for government of the province to allow that, it's wrong. It takes us to another thing that we will debate later when the Premier is here. But we wish to say that try and fight back that these processes are handled at a lower level. We know that the government is moving in a district arrangement. Let's force everything towards that direction, not we go another direction of taking things to national, because it will take time. It will never be an emergency, even in the future. So we are saying that MEC, no suke Mandela mfundi, kawuzame.
Thank you, Honorable Member. From the UDM,
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The UDM is of the view that this thing of a disaster should not be centralized. It should be brought back to our province because it's taking a lot of time when it is centralized. And ke unobangela wokubana icentralizwe kuyabonakala into yobana ilele kwalapha ephondweni. Ngoba iphondo lethu lihamba ngonyawo lonwabo ukulungisa ingxaki ezikhona ze-disaster. For example, there are families who are still suffering, who are still in need of houses as are affected zi-disaster kwixesha elidlulileyo. That is why ke ngoku namhlawumbe i-national has taken over i-control ye-disaster funds. So, siyanqwenela ke si-UDM ukuthi iphondo eli malike lithathe ulawulo, kodwa ekuthatheni ulawulo kwezi funds nize ke niyeke ukurhwaphiliza zike zenze le nto kufanele zenze yona. Enkosi.
Thank you, Honorable Member. We now call upon the ATM. They are not here. We call upon Freedom Front Plus. Honorable Burger.
Morning, Madam Speaker and House. All House rules observed. Madam Speaker, the Freedom Front Plus would like to see a proper risk assessment being done in this regard so that we can find appropriate mitigating measures. Thank you.
From the ANC, Honorable Tuabo.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. First and foremost,
My apologies, Honorable Tuabo. Honorable members, there is a member that is has risen. Please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First and foremost, it is important to acknowledge that the ANC-led government is the only country in the world that provides free houses and housing stands. We also provide low-cost rental housing in our cities. Since 1994, over 4.7 million free houses have been built, benefiting over 14 million people, with over 1 million built since 2014. And in the Eastern Cape, in the last 4 years, we built more than 54,000 houses, and in the process, creating over 50,000 jobs for our people. It is only those who suffer cognitive dissonance, a condition in political terms best accumulated by Frantz Fanon when he says those people hold a core belief that is very strong, and when they are presented with evidence that works against that belief, the new evidence cannot be accepted. They will rationalize, ignore, or even deny anything that doesn't fit within the core belief they have. The broad trust of policy changes in provisioning of houses is welcomed by the ANC in appreciating that as a result of the current growth trajectory dominated by capitalist mode of production, it is leading to the wholesale extinction of natural resources, to the destruction of small-scale peasant farming in the result. As a result, it also results in urbanization and to climate change that impacts more severely on continents like Africa and low-lying island states. As a result thereof, government must awake to the constant threat of climate change and reduce policy change that will make government to be agile and quick response to disasters. The change of policy, for instance, wherein the provincial department will no longer receive the provincial emergency housing grant because the national department is now responsible for emergency housing must be worked out such that it does not delay the response to the disasters. It also must have protocols that will ensure that it is clear how this money is actually getting to the space of the province. The department has also built houses which can withstand the current weather. Not only also that it must withstand the current weather, but also places where these houses are built, municipalities and government must ensure that those planning is properly done. So the ANC welcomes the fact that we no longer build temporal structures, but we'll actually build permanent solutions through the built technologies. The ANC welcomes the changes. Thank you very much, Honorable Madam.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dwabu. I will now ask the Secretary to read the first order of the day.
Consideration of the report of the Legislature Oversight Committee on Budget Vote number 2.
Just before you, Honorable Deputy Chief Whip, honourable members, just be reminded that the decision taken by the multi-party whip committee in that each chairperson has been allocated 15 minutes to table their reports, and members of the Executive Council each have 10 minutes to respond to the debate. The time allocated for questions of clarities to committee and a member of the Executive Committee is 5 minutes each. I will now invite the chairperson to table the report. Honorable Fihlane, 15 minutes.
Mandibendi kuba ke sekela somlomo noba bakafika abantu bekomiti. Thank you. Mhlambi ke siqale ngelithi happy belated birthday kuwe newele lakho on the 16th le ka June. And also say kodata bonke abalapha kulendlu nabakhona apha. I hope on Sunday you had a beautiful family time. Abanye ke benu ndiyabazi besendleleni, abanye besezinhlanganisweni, kodwa noba kulo nhlanganiso I hope uba ukwazi ukuyifumana noba isosi phayetini. Honorable Deputy Speaker, just to on presenting the report on the Legislature Oversight Committee, we would like to report to the House that we just to try, I'm not going to read the report, Deputy Speaker, if that's okay with the House. I'll just to try to read over because I don't think I'll be able to finish in the 15 minutes. Just to state that we try to be innovative as a committee to make plan for our own public participation as this committee, because we do not have any public participation, and we try to interact with the directorates of the institution. So you will find the report at the back of that, at the end. We have met with the supply chain, with the researcher, with the committee section, with dealing with researchers and committee coordinators. So we'll find that report. I'm just trying to, I'll try to take findings, so I'll see if I still have time to deal with the recommendations, Chair. I'll go straight now because I've tried to do that, and even with the objectives, I'll go to the findings, which is on page 4 in your overall ATC. On the findings, Honorable Deputy Speaker, we said the ERP project, which is at the cost of the 25,422,564.40 went online with the business on the 1st of April, with the exception of the processes that deals with payment. The legislature's organogram, a review process that is reported to be happening at a macro level, did not achieve its target of reaching the general staff as it was reported it would be completed on the 23rd of March. The critical positions of the executive manager, parliamentary services, and general manager, ITTS, which is a CIO, are expected to be filled in this financial year. The legislature has procured a fleet of vehicles in order to curb over-reliance on rental companies and to adapt to the realities of the shrinking budget. The legislature is expected to appoint a caterer by the end of May 2023, or in June. The legislature is not procuring tools of trade for employees due to budgetary constraints. The compensation of employees is very high and is concerning because it keeps on increasing, affecting the budget for conducting programs of the institution. The employee benefits that are determined as a legislature at a legislative sector level are not budgeted for. And I'll just try and skip on the recommendations so that if I find time. On the program 2 for the political parties, Honorable Speaker, the decreasing funding for the sub-program on facilities and benefits to members over the financial year is concerning, and it suggests that going forward to the condition, the conditions might be worse as the decrease continues over the MTEF. There are still issues with regarding to the utilities of houses for members, such as tariff determination being applied with regards to electricity bill or private properties adjacent to a house of a member siphoning water from the member's house with no monitoring from the Department of Public Works. It's a case in point with the house of the member that's there. There are transitional measures there are transitional arrangements to prepare for the exit and entrance of members that are being developed. The legislature has no booklet for the members' benefits. On program 3, Honorable Deputy Speaker, we said the legislature established a standing committee on budget and money bills in an effort to enhance oversight over the executive on the provincial budget and to enhance public participation on amendments of the money bills. The committee has been established without necessary support staff and tools of trade. The Portfolio Committee on Health is expected to conduct annual oversight visits to health facilities around the province as a committee of the whole House in this financial year going forward. The legislature will undertake an extensive public participation, public education program as a committee of the whole House to heighten public awareness about the national and provincial general elections of 2024. The legislature is to host 4 sectoral parliaments in this financial year. The Taking Legislature to the People program is to be hosted in Sarah Baartman district this financial year. The legislature is to consider 10 Section 76 bills and 3 provincial bills in this financial year. The research unit is not adequately resourced. To understand that they are working tools or on their budget to discharge their function. The committee is concerned by the long timeline in closing petitions, the slow turnaround time to respond to petition, and the non-follow-up of petitions has a potential to make communities lose trust and faith in the process. There is still a damage to the Dolim Zaidume Committee room, microsome system of the legislature that was caused by the members of the economic freedom fighters. There is a high rate of non-attendance of meetings by certain members with no enforcement of the standing rules on this matter. We can go just rush to general findings, Honorable Deputy Speaker. We're saying, notwithstanding the budgetary deficit and the constraints that engulf the legislature does not demonstrate enough efficiency to suggest that it would have operated better if it had received the budget it had requested. In some few instances, this constraint has helped it to become more economic and efficient. The legislature is reported to be spending an amount of 2 million subscriptions per annum. The legislature website went online on the 1st of April 2023. The social media platform of the legislature has a very low public engagement and a following. The engagement of the committee with staff from Program 3 revealed that in Program 3 there was not a single divisional meeting in the 6th term, and the culture of non-consultation that permeates the institution continued. The policy of the institution to reserve vacancies and prioritize internal candidates is illegal and unconstitutional, as it goes against the spirit of the Labour Relations Act. The delays in the ICT processes are very expensive for the institution, as we can see even now. We have to procure outside external companies. The SCM procurement process is slow. The standard number of catering for 100 people when conducting public hearings does not take into account the population density of the area. The sectoral parliaments hosted by the legislature are not open to the public. The number targeted for the events are very low, with no meaningful public participation, with delegates having no mandate from their constituencies. The ethics committee is not sitting. That was referred by the Honorable Speaker this morning. The Special Investigative Unit investigation in the Forte University admission policy and qualifications has embroiled the legislature into the matter, and consequently the Forte and the legislature met to discuss the matters pertaining to the investigation. The SCM unit and its staff are unfairly blamed by end users for the delay in the procurement on services, when most time of the delays are caused by the requesting units doing so late, and SCM having no choice but to follow the due process. The SCM unit sometimes does not get cooperation from units wherein a unit due of some of the images could not follow the proper procurement channels. SCM unit does not, unit that does procurement is also unfairly blamed for non-provisioning of working tools in the legislature when the problem is bigger than the unit and is not resting with the unit. The fleet management side of the SCM is overstretched with the recent retirement of the fleet manager and the retirement of 3 drivers placed on further burden on the fleet management of the SCM. The soon-to-end travel agent contract is causing problems for bookings and payment of service providers, and SCM staff getting blamed for non-payment of the establishment and bookings not being paid on time. The financial allocation of the budget of the research unit is unsatisfactory, and this has a direct bearing on how the unit and the researchers operate. The under-budgeting creates a situation where researchers are made to underperform as a critical research undertaking, such as required 6 focus intervention studies are not done. The enormous pressure put on researchers to deliver work with no resources and budget allocated. Researchers cannot access internet and emails or even their own document with only 4 laptops issued to the research unit. Some of the office space, to an extent that you will find that there was a researcher of the Women's Caucus, when she was presenting, she wrote that on hand when she was presenting to us in the Women's Caucus. I just went to make that case in point. Some of the office space of the researchers are inhabitable. In the current term, there were no meetings with the executive manager responsible for the unit. The memorandums for requesting permission to conduct research work were routinely rejected by the executive manager. The unit's appeal in the grading process was not acknowledged and thus not responded to. The 5th and 6th terms have been difficult for the research unit to conduct its work. Serious challenges were raised with regard to interfacing between the public participation and petitions unit and the research unit. The public participation and education unit is not involving the researcher of the PPP and E committee in petitions raised. Raises legitimacy on issues of the petitions and processes followed. There are a lot of issues, Honorable Deputy Speaker, but just to say this is what we have been seized with as a committee and what we have met with the other divisions, and we still yet to meet with the others. And we thank the committee and the committee supports team and the management of the institution for availing themselves in dealing with this. We so present. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chief Whip. Honorable Fihlani. Are there clarities by the committee, honorable members? Honorable Ndamase? Oh, Honorable Malamlela, you'll be number 2. In that order. There is a mic coming to you, honorable member.
Thank you very much. My clarity is on, I don't know the program yet, but it is finding G, which is about the compensation of employees. That the finding is saying that it is high and it keeps on increasing, affecting the budget for conducting programs of the institution. The concomitant recommendation that is there is that the legislature must submit plans to address the issue of the high compensation of employees. To me, that there is a discord there, looking at the finding as well as the recommendation. My question for clarity is this found for the first time? And if it is not for the first time, what has been the response to it previously? Then the second one and the last one, I was still checking it. But when the chairperson of the LOC was articulating the report, she made mention about the interaction between the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature and the University of Fort Hare. My question is, from the point of view of the report, is there anything found where the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature has been found wanting in relation to that relationship with the University of Fort Hare? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Malamlela.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I've got two clarities. The first one is on the committee itself, and the second one, I'm not sure whether to ask it now, is for the Speaker. Can I shoot
Yes,
both?
ask the committee now.
Okay. It's on page 119. I think it's number K on the general findings. It's saying the ethics committee is not sitting. Then if you go to the recommendations, you will find that there is an answer in a way provided. Where is it now? it says the legislature must ensure that the ethics committee is programmed. So I'm just curious to know what were the reasons advanced for that committee not to sit to the committee. Yeah, that's for the committee. Let me wait for the speaker one. Thank you very much, Honorable.
Honorable Chair. Yes.
The issue on the relations with the, thank you very much so that I don't have to shout. The issue on the relations with Forte, is there anything that we found? We will await, because there is still an investigation that is still, we will await the institution to report to us on their interactions with Forte. We will still await for the institution. Then on the issue of the ethics, Honorable Deputy Speaker, the ethics committee, I think there were internal challenges that related to that, especially in the administrative challenges that led not to sit. But Honorable Speaker would expatiate further on that matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, honourable members. I think the clarities to committees are done, and thank you very much, committee members. Are there clarities addressed to the Honourable Speaker? I can see here she has been referred as MEC. Honourable Malamlela, Honourable Ndamase, in that order.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. My clarity to the Honourable Speaker is on page 112, Honourable Deputy Speaker. On the findings, there's something I think is on age. The employee benefits that are determined at a legislative sector level are not budgeted for. Now, I wanted to check, because the recommendation is saying the legislature must submit a plan on how it will pay employees' benefits once the determination at the sector bargaining is made. I just want to check why we're not budgeted for. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Malamlela. Honourable Ndamase.
Thank you very much. The same questions, but framed differently. The committee, in relation to the COE, that is consuming a lot of budget to the detriment of other programs. I'm paraphrasing what the report is saying. The committee is saying the COE issues are not dependent on the legislature. They are dependent on the legislative sector. If that is correct, then my question is, the legislative sector, the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature is part of the legislative sector. Therefore, what does that mean in relation to a House resolution? Because the committee is saying that this is not being taken for the first time. So there is already a House resolution in relation to COE that is consuming a lot of money. That is what the report is saying. And therefore, the question is, why is the legislature breaking its own House resolutions? That's one. In the same question again, there is this spirit and letter of salaries decisions that are taken at a legislative sector wherein the SNK Provincial Legislature is unable to match them sometimes. That's the spirit of what is being said there. Then my question is, do we match the decisions of the sector, or we tend to go beyond them? Or do we go below? Because the law allows you. If the sector says 4%, do you go for 8% or go for 2% instead of what the sector has determined? Then the last one is the 4th one. The committee is saying there is an investigation. Which investigation? Because as far as we know in the public arena, is that there is a presidential proclamation that has resulted to the SIU investigating in Fort. Then who is investigating the relationship between the SNK Provincial Legislature and Fort? Is ECPL investigating, or is Fort? Who is investigating this investigation, if there is any investigation, apart from the proclaimed one by the President? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the questions that have been posed. Let's just put a few things into context. Is that one, we have been in the House previously, and we've reported to the LOC that one, we do submit a budget as the Provincial Legislature in terms of all benefits that is required for our employees. It is then incumbent upon Provincial Treasury to give us that budget. And unfortunately, that budget that we receive back for the COE is never adequate for that budget. And therefore, we then have to play around with that budget limitations within the benefits, paying out the benefits of members. And we do report those challenges, as we also report in how we basically deal with those issues on a regular basis to the LOC as and when it has happened. And this has happened over the last 3 years. The legislative sector does take precedence even over House resolutions. We should all be aware, because this is a sectoral bargaining sector. It is in law, they have that requirement. The Eastern Cape, for the last 3 years, is only one of 2 legislatures that have been consistently opposing the increases as per the other legislatures, what they would have agreed to. And unfortunately, 2 out of the 8 legislatures would then agree to the increases, and it would then put us in the unfortunate position where we have to agree. There is no deviation in terms of the sectoral agreement allowed for phasing in or even for a differentiated approach at the local level. That is why there is a sectoral approach in that regard. With respect to the Fort Hare investigation, all that we have received from Fort Hare thus far is just for information, and we have submitted that information. The first tranche, they have requested additional information, and we have submitted that documentation. That is all that we know from the Fort Hare investigation against members, previous members of the legislature, Honorable Chair. As and when we have additional information from Fort Hare, we will then appraise the LOC as we have made that commitment. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I will now invite Democratic Alliance for the debate. Honorable Notsi, you've got 12 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Just to say that I am delivering the speech of Honorable Stevenson on his behalf. He unfortunately has been hospitalized and will receive some emergency surgery tomorrow, and we keep him in our thoughts and prayers, and we hope that he makes a quick and full recovery. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we must ask ourselves, is this legislature going backwards? Are we marking time, or are we moving forward? Is it not time that we re-energize this institution with a fresh vision to be more clearly focused on our core business? It is very easy for an institution to become sidetracked and inwardly focused as opposed to a broader vision of what it means to make a difference in society as a whole. That is the question we must ask ourselves. Are we making that difference? Is our oversight, our lawmaking, our public participation making this legislature relevant in the eyes of our community? If not, what will we do differently in this last year of our term to make sure that we make a difference? Honourable Deputy Speaker, the first point I would like to raise is the legislature's funding. We all know that the legislature is underfunded and lacks sufficient funding to fulfill our core business. So why do I say this? When a study was done regarding the 2022-2023 financial year, our legislature, as a proportion of members to funding, came 6th out of 9 legislatures. What was interesting from the study is that the Northwest Province, with 33 members, had an appropriation of 487 million, and we at the time, with 63 members, had an appropriation of 571 million. Likewise, in Gauteng, with 10 members more than us, 73, had an appropriation of nearly R1 billion at 909 million. It would suggest that the funding of our legislature is far below other provinces. We are under-resourced, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The difference can be shown by the fact that, just as an example, the KZN legislature for this financial year, all members had an African trip and all members in that legislature had an overseas trip. And I'm not for one moment advocating that we should be just going on trips. I'm purely stating this as an example to illustrate the stark contrast between the two legislatures and what they are able to do in terms of oversight and learning from international and other African countries that we are now not able to do. Clearly something is wrong with how we are funded, and we need to adopt a model where the legislature receives a percentage of equitable share. The legislative sector needs to develop a policy, or we need to introduce our own legislature policy or our own rule. The proviso that the Speaker and the MEC must agree on the budget before the budget is presented to the House is not getting the desired results. If the Provincial Treasury believes that the cost of employment is too high, then they should say so, and then ring-fence part of the budget for core business so that it cannot be virimented for COE. Honourable Deputy Speaker, there are other issues about which the underfunding speaks. For example, tools of trade. The legislature's policy is that members should get a new laptop every 2 years, and as part of how it was in the past, we used to get a phone every year, but that, both of that seems to have fallen away. When we look at the state of the chamber, and it is illustrated here today where somebody needs to walk around with a mic, because the microphones at every desk do not work. Through you, Honourable Speaker, Honourable Deputy Chief Whip Figlani spoke about what the chambers, what the committee rooms look like. The screens of these in the chamber, they don't even work, and they haven't worked for some time. Our officers do not have access to intranet. That means we do not have access to the SAGE system, and we cannot process flights, request pay slips or stationery or anything like that. These things need attention, and it needs to be fixed. Furthermore, when it comes to the ERP system, to what extent is this system actually working? Have there been any glitches, and what's being done to resolve these issues so that all processes can actually go online? On the point of public education, Honourable Deputy Speaker, one of the best ways of having a broad reach for this legislature and making it more relevant and reach thousands of people is to put more emphasis on our Facebook. And we congratulate the legislature for the work that has gone into our Facebook. We are all on that page now. There's regular updates. Just after every meeting, you can see photos of members interacting, and that is what people want to see. People want to see what we are doing in the legislature. They want to be excited about what we are doing in the legislature. Honourable Deputy Speaker, when I joined this House nearly 10 years ago in 2014, I remember having a sitting like this, and that media box up there would be full of media coming to listen. Our galleries would be full. People were interested in what we were doing and what we were saying. In the newspaper, you can open it the next day, and there would be quotes of what different members were saying in their debate, because people were interested and we were relevant. And we need to make sure that we get there again. And one of those ways is through creating that excitement on social media, Instagram, and those types of pages. That is where people are getting their news, and that is where they are focused. The issue of security also needs to be addressed, Honourable Deputy Speaker. When we first came to the House years ago, you used to have an access card. There was real security in this precinct. Anybody couldn't just walk into the office buildings. On a more positive note, we have noticed an improvement in the addressing of issues in our homes in terms of the prestige portfolio. It used to be that we were struggling for months to just get a geyser fixed. And now with the new directorate there, I can personally say that that manager came to our house with a plumber, and it was done the same day. And so there is definitely an improvement in terms of the prestige portfolio. In conclusion, Honourable Deputy Speaker, the DA supports the committee report, but we cannot support the budget for the legislature as it is underfunded and inadequate for us to do the business we need to do. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Natsing. Thank you. I will now invite Honourable Matikizela, Economic Freedom Fighters.
Thanks, Speaker. Greetings to the leadership of the EFF and led by the chairperson of the EFF, Commissioners Lindy Levena. Greetings to all members, including members of the executive, yourself, Deputy Speaker. Now my contribution will be on the report. One of the things that we have noted is that there is a confidence in presenting an idea that there has been no procurement of tools of trade with no logic to substantiate that and to motivate what would be the reason except the theory that there is an underfunding. And also, ever since we have joined this legislature, we have noted that the houses of some of the members of the legislature are not kept well, meaning those legislature members must work on the environment that is not very conducive for them to produce ideas, because the main important thing for working in the proper environment is for you to be able to produce ideas that would make the Eastern Cape a great environment to work on. We further note that the document speaks thoroughly or more on the issues of tariffs of the BCM municipality, where most of the tariffs are paid to. So we feel also that one of the things that inconveniences members of the legislature. We have been observing the dysfunctionality of the offices that are supposed to be supporting the legislature to function properly. But we know that we are told that there has been no CEO for some time. So we note that and we see what informs this dysfunctionality. We have noted seriously that when it comes to the 4 sectoral parliament, in our view as the EFF, those sectoral parliaments has been all just a ceremonious activity or an activity that seems to have no direction or no results that are conducive or that are progressive. Thank you. One of the things that we have observed is that these parliaments are not monitored and evaluated, meaning the discussions or debates that take place in those parliament are not compiled properly in the form of a document and resolutions that would be implemented in the next fashion, or in the next season to guide the parliament. No problem. Okay, no, it's fine. So with that, as far as things stands, we do not appreciate the way those 4 sectoral parliaments are handled, and in the same breath, we feel that they are relevant indeed, but they would have done a great job if they were monitored, and then the resolutions are part of the guiding documents that guide the legislation. The Zaidume issue of that is not working, as Mike's not working because of the EFF, is a typical example that tells us that wrong policies, rules, standing rules that are part of this legislation are constantly misguiding our activities and also assisting in dysfunctionality of this legislation. So as a lesson, we must avoid such policies next time. There is no need for scuffling in the legislature. We need to ensure that the policies are relevant and do cater for the modern day thinking and the new developments in the politics of South Africa, because the dress code of the EFF, it has to be, those are the things that come with the democratic dispensation. You would never have imagined under apartheid that people would be limited on how they dress. But nowadays, we are in a democratic society. We must expect that there will be different developments in the politics that we are part of. So rules that are irrelevant must be phased out, as we are trying also in the Constitution of South Africa to phase out rules, or to phase out laws that are not adding value in the society or in the country that we are living in. Also, we have observed that the legislature, contrary to what the letter speaker has spoken, that there is an improvement on social media and all those things. There is an improvement in terms of posting, but there isn't the vibe that is necessary for the legislature of our magnitude, because remember we have a population that we are serving in the Eastern Cape, and that population must consistently see the activities of the legislature and be able to contribute and advise on the best activities that the legislature must embark on. Before I sit down, I want to comment on the issue of Fort and the relationship with the legislature. I don't think there is any bad relationship between Forte and the legislature. We must be able to distinguish between ourselves and individuals. So if an individual has an issue with the legislature, you can't take all of us and say the legislature has a problem with Forte. Forte is an institution, legislature is an institution. Your premier is a person who applied to did whatever with the Forte, and then the Forte has an issue with the premier, or has an issue as him as a student of Forte, or a person who applied to Forte, not the legislature. So we must not treat institutions as if zintos or individuals. So I want to emphasize that there is no relationship that is bad. The committee didn't even have to involve itself in some imaginary investigations. There is no relationship crisis with the legislature and Forte. So that must be emphasized by all of us. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Matikizela. UDM, I don't see Honorable Ndlodaga here. No Freedom Front, no ATM. African National Congress, Honorable Konza. Uh, 15 minutes, Honorable Member.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Deputy Speaker is presiding now, the Chair of Chairs, the Chief Whip of the House, the Deputy Chief Whip, the Acting Premier and the Executive, the MPLs, officials, members of the public that are in the gallery, and those that are watching us from the different media streams. Molweni, I want to attend to Honorable Speaker and honorable members, it is the month of June again, a month of reflections for the young people and all of us that are here. Reflections on a number of truths and revelations. Revelations and realizations. Reflections on the political reconciliatory journey we have traveled from the days of an intense struggle to date. Reflections on the glitches encountered to complete liberation and achievements realized in a terrain which was not easy at all, to say the least. Reflections on a decade tagged with burdens of hard realities of the global and local impacts of climate change, as evidenced by severe droughts, disastrous torrential rains and storms, fateful diseases or pandemics, with the advent of COVID-19 still lingering in our minds. Reflections on the threatened world peace and global economic meltdown. Reflections again on how these have impacted and still do on the shrinking budgetary capabilities of governments across the globe. As the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature and its populace, honorable members, we have not been spared at all from such a socio-economic onslaught. Its aftermaths, especially that of COVID-19, currently hitting us hard even now. Hence, we talk about under-budgeting and other issues. I am raising all this, Honorable Speaker or Deputy Speaker, to put this debate in the right context and perspective, so that whilst we make a constructive critique on our failures, real and perceived, we dare not underscore the achievements we have made against such push and pull factors of our era. One draws these reflections from an understanding that we are entering the phase of dirty propaganda, as we are already in the battlefield for provincial and national elections. That is even shown today. Lela xesha lesiyezi nencilikithi. Elo xesha eli ke somlomo apho abantu babanenkwembezi emehlweni. Abantu abathile babone luzizi balibale kwaye baphike nabakwaziyo de baphike noku bakwenza ngokwabo ngempumelelo. It's that sad reality and that sad time when we seem to forget what we have achieved. Honorable Speaker and honorable members, this is also a time to take stock as to whether we have, as this legislature, despite all these things that I have raised and all the picture that I have painted above, whether we have managed to create an activist and people-centered legislature and an environment for them to participate, especially as consumers of our service. Have we lived to our vision of creating an activist and responsible people's assembly for good governance and improvement of quality of life of all? This question immediately draws me to the fact that some committees of this legislature, including mine for social development, were in the past recent weeks out there making visits and making undertakings in the different communities, interacting with stakeholders and responding to pressing challenges aching them, with some visits still on the line in the program of the legislature. There are but a few activities amongst many that this legislature has implanted its footprints on, with the aim of making people partake in the processes of their own governance. We appreciate, as this committee, Honorable Speaker, the internal oversight as conducted by the committee that was started on the different committees like the SCM and the researchers of this institution. This was a new and an untraveled journey to be taken by this legislature. It has never been done, and we have to appreciate that. We therefore say that, as the ANC, this has to continue. When Jiabo, former Premier of the Republic of China, once said, and I quote him, "It is only when there is the supervision and critical oversight from the people that the government will be in a position to do an even better job, and employees of government departments will be the true public servants of the people." Close quote. Is that not what this legislature is trying to achieve through these different programs that I have cited, through these committee visits, through taking legislature to the people, and through the sector parliaments that have been held by this particular legislature? What else has to be done in order to ensure that public participation takes place? This is but a few of the programs that have been taken and those that are still in the pipeline for the legislature to continue to do. Doing it as a house fully and also through its committees as the arms that it uses. We, however, call for an improved funding model for the legislature, Honorable MEC for Provincial Treasury. For any institution to perform optimally, resources have to be availed. We can't be expected, or we can't expect the legislature to perform optimally if then the funding of such an institution is shrinking as it does. Honorable Speaker, in the portal for parliamentary development, as a publication that I read recently, there are key components of parliamentary oversight that are listed, and they go as follows. 1, ensuring transparency and openness of the executive activities. 2, holding the executive accountable. 3, providing financial accountability. 4, upholding the rule of law.
It is for this reason that the establishment of the Standing Committee on Money Bills by the legislature is highly applauded. Such a committee does not only enhance legislature processes of oversight, but on a broader scope, it is one of the crucial tenets that guarantee surety to the general public on issues of good governance. We are the second legislature in the country to have established such a committee, and the first to make huge strides of having it to operate. Even those that started before us are struggling to make the committee move. It's a huge step, Honorable Speaker, as such a committee needs mature processes of oversight by the legislature over the executive. It has a potential, therefore, whether through oversight is dreaded, to strain relations between the two arms of government, that is the legislature and the executive. It is imperative, therefore, that such a crucial committee is fully resourced for it to be able to perform optimally, and its purpose is fully understood. Honorable Speaker, issues raised by the report on the failure of the legislature to achieve its target of meeting general staff regarding the institutional organogram, coupled with the critical posts that are still to be filled, are a worrying factor, though. For us to be able to perform as Parliament, we need a competent workforce. This is coupled with the concerns about the observed decreasing funding on facilities and benefits to members in the year under review and moving forward. What makes members honorable is not their deeds and behaviors only, but the environment under which they perform their programs of servitude. We note issues raised by the committee on where this legislature during the period under review has failed to meet its expected targets. In the same breath, honorable members, we condemn any signs of under-expenditure, and we call on consequence management steps to be taken promptly as and when such occurrences make their ugly and unwelcome appearances. We note the progress that we have made, and will never rebuke it. We proud ourselves about it, and we celebrate our achievements. We subscribe to what our former president, President Thabo Mbeki, once said, and I quote him: "Whoever we may be, whatever our immediate interest, however much we carry baggage from our past, however much we have been caught by a fashion of cynicism and loss of faith in the capacity of the people, let us err today and say, nothing can stop us now." Close quote. This is exactly why the ANC supports this report. As the ANC and the contingent in this legislature, despite the challenges raised, we are still determined to respond to the question that was asked here before me, whether we are doing the right thing or not, and say, yes, we are. And we will continue to do so, not doubting ourselves, but moving forward with the whispers and shouts of our people at the background, saying, move on, do what is right. We still need you, because the ANC is our only hope. We continue moving forward, understanding that we are not perfect, and that we are going to do what we can with the power we have and the support we share and enjoy from the masses of our people. We will continue to drive forward as this legislature and make Eastern Cape shine, despite challenges that might be there, which are not immune to the Eastern Cape. Honorable Speaker, we support the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Konza. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Souls August. 10 minutes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Honorable Deputy Speaker, the honorable members of the legislature, the Chief Whip, the members of the Legislature Oversight Committee, the acting Premier, Molweni. No, okay. Honorable Deputy Speaker, this is the month of June, and we are beset usually with numerous anecdotes of our people's tremendous courage. There are stories of ordinary people that have changed the course of history, a history that we know is one of subjugation, extreme exploitation, and degradation for the comfort of a privileged few minorities. Nearly half a century later, we continue to stand on the tiny yet broad shoulders of the youth of 1976, who braved the brutality and repression of the government of the day. As we today celebrate Youth Month, we choose never to forget the resistance of the 11 tribesmen of Inguza Hill, the bloodshed of our people in Boipatong and the FAL, with the intention of collapsing the negotiations. The launch of the Defiance campaign, in which the very first time Africans, Indians, whites, and colored people engage in joint political action under a common leadership. The high noon of these events was the June 17th vote in 1991 that repealed the legal framework of apartheid and began the process that would eventually abolish apartheid. The vote was not out of the goodness of anyone's heart, rather through a difficult result of the painful anecdotes of our people. In their honor, we have a responsibility to never forget, to jealously guard our democracy and always work to consolidate on its gains for a better future for the children of our country. Honorable members, let me allow on behalf of the legislature to welcome the report from the committee and express our gratitude to the LOC for their diligence and in preparation of the report being considered by the House today. There are, however, few areas that we can quickly provide responses to and the details which will then be submitted at a later stage in terms of the House resolutions. To expedite the legislature's organogram review process, as the Speaker, I have appointed the Secretary to the legislature to now head this project. And as for the booklet for members' benefits, a draft has already been developed and is currently undergoing internal processes that will culminate in its presentation to the EXCO and ultimately the Rules Committee for adoption. With regards to the petitions, the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature's standard operating procedure for the petitions process comprehensively outlines the petitions and requires the PPP&E Committee to consider every petition referred to it, and as such consideration must be within the 60 days, depending on the nature and complexity of the petition, which must in total not exceed 90 days. Honourable members, we will also ensure that we furnish the committee with dates for the sectoral parliaments. Unfortunately, the member of the EFF is not here. That must still be held. It's not sectoral parliaments that have already been held, but sectoral parliaments that are taking place. We note the committee's finding with regards to the extending it to a community out there, but sectoral parliaments, we must understand, are primarily held for specific sectors who would then nominate delegates from that specific sector to join them in the plenary type of fashion that we are reverting to back. And as far as the committee's general finding is concerned with regards to the undertaking of the focused intervention study, the legislature is still committed to undertaking the 3 focused intervention studies as reflected in the 23-24 annual performance plan. Honourable members, with respect to the findings on the research, we note those findings and the recommendations and the supply chain, but honourable members must also understand, with the research unit, this is one of the units that have consistently over two-year financial period have basically given back their budget to the legislature because they had no plans in place to basically do their work. And this is basically the issues that they must contend with in that unit and get their performance up and going. The supply chain management, we are also glad that they have met the supply chain management, but this is also one of the units where one of the tenders have been stuck for a period of 2 years, and it cannot go through the formal processes. And one of the tenders is the refurbishment, the ICT tender for this house. So those are the issues where we are taking umbrage with those 2 units, and we have consistently through the Secretary dealing with those measures to ensure that consequence management is taken up, and we are currently busy with those members that are abdicating their responsibility in dealing with those matters. The committee report of 2023-23 financial year has recommended that the institution must, as a matter of urgency, engage the provincial treasury to source more funds for the legislature, and also request for the appropriation as it is a branch of the state. We will continue to do so, but we must also remind members that we came to this House about a year, 2 years back, and made a firm policy pronouncement that we are requesting at least 2% from the provincial fiscus to source and fund the legislature, which we believe that is an adequate budget if you look at the comparison as the Honourable Member of the DA has done it vis-a-vis other legislatures in what they have received. We are taking this opportunity to thank the LOC for this report, and we know that we will respond within 30 days. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. And thank you very much to honored members for this very insightful debate in the report of this Honourable House. I will now put the report. Any objection? Thank you very much. There being none, honored members, I will ask the Secretary to read the next order of the day.
Consideration of the report of the Portfolio Committee on Health on Budget Vote number 3.
I call upon the chairperson of the committee, Honourable Nyalambisa. Your 15 minutes starts now.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mandime apha ndizonika ingxelo yekomiti yezempilo yonyaka mali 2023-2024 budget vote. On Program 1, which deals with health administration and management. Finding A, departmental plans were uploaded by the committee. However, the committee was concerned about the absence of the time frames in most areas. Be it the financial status of the department as a going concern remains compromised considering unbudgeted medical legal claims, bank overdrafts, accruals and payables with which it is confronted. C, electricity has been disconnected at head office due to the municipal debt associated with Cecilia Makiwane Hospital. Whilst appreciating the bursaries to be offered by the department to its employees, the committee cautioned the department on the importance of ensuring that the deserving employees, especially those aspiring to be operational managers, are released. E, load shedding continues to impact negatively on cold chain medicines, life-saving equipment, and threatens lives in the healthcare sector. The department has been using PCMT as a scapegoat to delay recruitment, whilst the process is flexible enough for it to make use of powers to employ. The department stands to partially report when it comes to generators, as it only focuses on the availability aspect and be silent on the working order. The report that a total budget of 20 million rands has been dissolved to districts was received with serious reservations by the committee, noting leadership challenges in areas like Joe Kabi district. Pleasingly, the department reported a meaningful reduction of irregular expenditure in the year under consideration. Lastly, the department has introduced a hybrid security approach in its facilities and was appreciated by the committee. The recommendations: A, the department must attach clear timeframes to its plans as part of commitment to on-time service delivery. B, the gravity of the financial crisis urgently necessitates for the intervention of the provincial treasurer and, if needs be, even the national treasurer to change the situation for better. C, the department must make use of the intergovernmental relations with the municipality for the possibility of negotiating a write-off of the municipal debt. D, the department must ensure that eligible staff members are released to pursue studies as part of its commitment to training and development and further upward mobility of its employees. Recommendation E, whilst the lasting solution is the installation of solar power in the healthcare facilities, the department must, in the interim, ensure backup power generators are in working order and there is an excess supply of diesel. The department must display commitment to service delivery by making use of the embedded powers to employ and refrain from escaping goat with PCMT. G, the department must refrain from partial reporting and reflect on both availability and functionality with respect to backup generators. The department must display commitment to establish all its facilities compliant to NHI by ensuring primarily that there is a proper management and optimal functioning. The department must ensure that districts have the necessary capacity to manage those funds and further monitor to usage. All the efforts aimed at maximizing security in healthcare facilities are commendable, noting the recent life-threatening incident whereby in Gqeberha a doctor was gun-pointed. On Program 2, which deals with ensuring the delivery of the primary health care services through the implementation of the district health system. Finding A, hypertension remains the major contributing factor in maternal mortality, especially among young girls. B, partnership initiatives explored by the department towards ending teenage pregnancy were uploaded by the committee. C, the committee also cautioned about illegal abortions as an alternative to unwanted pregnancies. D, the non-availability of dental vans in other districts was not accepted by the committee. The recommendations from A to C, the department must further strengthen partnership with the sister departments like education and social development with the aim to educate on pre-pregnancy and must further ensure there is a close monitoring by skilled workforce at neonatal clinic. D, the department must equally maximize the dental service even in other districts by providing the needed dental vans. Program 3, which deals with EMS. Finding A, the national norm of 1 ambulance per 10,000 population is not seen as an addressing the needs of the rural Eastern Cape province. B, the committee was very much appreciative of the decentralization of EMS. Recommendations: A, the department must explore possibilities of engaging the national department for purposes of reviewing the national norm of 1 ambulance per 10,000 population. B, the department is commended for finally implementing the long-term recommendation of the committee and must do likewise with all other recommendations and House resolutions. On Program 4, that is Provincial Hospital Services, finding D, quite a number of concerns relating to mental health facilities were lifted by the committee, and those included the following: Komani Psychiatric Hospital does not have sufficient equipment. Bullet 2, also there's a space challenge such that mental health care users tend to encroach on other patients. 3, staff is idling at Osmond Hospital due to closure of the hospital to patients. Bullet number 4, the mental health unit at St. Barnabas Hospital is still not yet open. The recommendation, the department must, as a matter of agency, devise a turnaround plan to address the flagged challenges in mental health facilities. Such plan must reach the committee within 30 days after the adoption of this report by the House. On program 5, the finding on recommendation 5, that is finding B. Critical hospitals like Livingstone and Frey still to date do not have permanently employed CEOs, of which that in effect handicaps leadership and management of those facilities. The recommendation, the department must display commitment to proper management and stability in its facilities by ensuring that those hospitals are provided permanently employed CEOs. A progress report in this regard must be submitted to the committee within 90 days after the adoption of this report by the House. Let me go to general findings. General finding
You
1.
have 5 minutes remaining, honorable member.
Failure to deliver responses on time handicaps the oversight function of the committee during the consideration 2023-2024 budget vote. Human resource, supply chain management and infrastructure remain the most areas of concern to the committee. 3, the country-wide load shedding challenge continues to negatively affect the cold chain medicines and life-saving equipment in the healthcare center. Recommendations, the department must display commitment and respect to the oversight function of the Health Portfolio Committee, as it is the provincial structure bestowed within oversight function. The department must devise turnaround strategy to improve performance in the 3 identified sections. Whilst the lasting solution in the installation of solar power in healthcare facilities, the departments must, in the interim, ensure alternative backup power generators are in working order and there is an excess supply of diesel. Kanigqibezela somlomo mandithathe lithuba ndibulele kumalungu ahloniphekileyo ekomiti, umphathiswa wesebe, intloko yesebe, u-HOD, amagosa onke akufutshane ekuncedisaneni nekomiti ngokwenza le ngxelo ibe ingxelo ekufaneleyo uba ize kule ndlu yowiso-mthetho. Enkosi somlomo.
Thank you, Honorable Nyalambisa. Any clarities to the committee, honorable members? Honorable Matkubela and Honorable Malamlela, in that order. Honorable members, please.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mine, Honorable Speaker, is in relation with emergency medical services, page 129 to page 130. Honorable Speaker, I'm happy with the recommendations, but I just need a clarity as to what is the committee's recommendation in terms of the actual numbers that they are sponsoring to the national department, because currently is 1 ambulance per 10,000 population. Also, the last one is to check as to when they think they are going to engage the national
Department of Health, because this is a very urgent matter due to the accidents that we are experiencing within the province, specifically in our region as Ijokabi. Honorable Speaker, thank you.
Thank you so much. Honorable Malamlela.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. My first clarity to the committee is on page 128. Where they are talking about electricity that has not been paid. My problem is, on page 127. My problem is on their recommendation, Chair, that is saying the department must make use of the intergovernmental relations with the municipality for the possibility of negotiating a write-off of the municipal debt. My clarity is, are you not encouraging as a committee a culture of non-payment when you are saying it must be written off instead of saying they must possibly negotiate paying in part payments or installments? That's it, Chair. The second one is on page 132. This one, the finding is saying the head office was found not to have given the support and had not exercised. That's the finding, as you can see. Let me not reread it. Then I have a problem with the recommendation in relation to that one. A and B, they are combined, but they do not talk to the consequence management that has been highlighted in the findings. That's the clarity I'm seeking, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Response by the committee. Can we please have the mic to the committee members? Can you they are just bringing the mic.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Can Honorable Malamlela repeat the last question? Sorry, Honorable Speaker.
Can you just summarize it? The issue of that there is the recommendation does not carry the issue of consequence management forward.
I think you have captured it correctly, David, Speaker. Is in relation to Mashweme, Honorable Nomtate.
Honorable Nyalambisa.
The finding talks about head office was found not to have given due support and had not exercised consequence management over the management of the college. Then you go to the recommendations. The recommendations do not talk to the consequent management. They only talk about the integrity. I'm not sure if I'm clear now through you, Honorable Speaker.
Okay.
Don't talk to consequence management. Why?
Okay, let me start with Honorable Makubel. When we are saying the department must negotiate with national, with this norm that one ambulance per 10,000. We are saying this because it has already been implemented by national. So we are lobbying the department to negotiate with the national. We don't have the actual numbers. On the write-off, yes, maybe Honorable Malamlela is correct. But as a committee, we are referring to this because here in Buffalo City Metro, there was a write-off made to the private sector, that is Hemingway's Mall. And we are saying now, if the municipality has made a write-off to the private sector, maybe the public sector can be prioritized by the municipality on write-offs. What another? Can I refer to other honorable members? Honorable Khaben, Honorable Pile.
Honorable members, please do note that clarities by committees is only 5 minutes in total. Questions and responses.
The last issue raised by Honorable Malamilela, we note that. Thank you very much. It's an oversight from the committee. We are going to accommodate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Clarity by the MEC. You may go to your seats, honorable members of the committee. None. Can we then call upon the DA, Honorable Cowley? I'm sorry, I have already proceeded, honorable member. Please feel free to write your question to the honorable MEC. Your 12 minutes starts now, honorable member.
Thank you, Madam. Oops, is it on? Yes. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Honourable Premier in absentia, Honourable members of the House, officials and guests, good morning. Honourable Speaker, the Department of Health is in a dire financial state. We know this. The continued depletion of operational budget in a desperate attempt to keep the department afloat has sadly impacted not only on the health of our citizens, but on their lives too. Sadly, many of the findings in the report are repeat findings, and of course, some of them are linked to the financial status of the department, but others are a direct result of shocking human resource management and cadre deployment. In our deliberations with the department, we were told that the Chief Executive Officer post for Livingston was in the final stages of appointment. But in a response to a written question, I was told that the National Department of Health has put a moratorium on all appointments while they develop a policy that will ensure that all CEO appointments for central and tertiary hospitals are based on merit. What does this tell you? It tells you that up until now, these positions have been filled by unsuitable and unqualified cadres. It tells you that political patronage has until now, been more important than employing leaders who are fit for purpose and who can deliver effective healthcare services in these institutions. Let us talk about the excessively high vacancy rate in our hospitals and in our EMS program. Despite the PCMT taking the blame for not approving more posts, it is the department that will not fill these posts because they are using those salaries to stay afloat. They haven't even filled the 2,941 posts that were approved in the last financial year. Instead of filling critical medical posts, they would rather channel an extra 22% of the funding to the infrastructure program. This would be fine if this program ever finished a job within budget or on time. It never has, and it never will. This is because many of the contractors are not fit for purpose, and neither are their buildings. But they are allegedly politically connected, so all is well. We'll throw more money at the infrastructure program only to watch while our hospitals and clinics crumble around us. Blacklisting underperforming contractors? You can't blacklist a buddy. Let's talk about Lilita. If ever one needs a yardstick for failure, there it is. You can choose your poison in that program: irregular expenditure, irregular appointments, failure to ensure consequence management, and a devastatingly obvious decline in the quality of nurses it produces. Ask any of the older nurses in the system and they will agree. Lilita is accredited for exactly one general nursing diploma and is unable to offer any specialties. So if you need a midwife or a pediatric nurse or a psychiatric nurse, you won't be getting them from Lilita. What you will get is favoritism, patronage, and obfuscation of the highest order. What irks is that this program gets a massive 70% increase in its allocation, while district health services, EMS, and provincial hospital services, the three programs that are the very heartbeat of healthcare, all face cuts. This is wrong. Let's talk about the medical staff sitting at Osmond Tuberculosis Hospital in Kariga. They have not done a day's work in almost 2 years, but have cost the taxpayer in excess of 65 million rand in salaries. According to the HOD, the matter has been resolved and they will be redeployed to other facilities this month. According to them, they are going nowhere. This is wrong. Honourable Speaker, it would be churlish of me to ignore the efforts of the Honourable MEC and the HOD in trying to stabilise the finances of the department. They have indeed put many contingency plans in place to try to stem the hemorrhaging of money from their coffers, and some of these plans will bear fruit. Sadly, the sheer enormity of the debt that the department has accrued undermines all their best efforts. And if no intervention from Treasury is forthcoming, this department will be lucky to survive another 3 years. Let us look at the numbers. The allocation to the department this year has already been reduced by 0.3% from 28.226 billion to 28.139 billion. However, this figure does not take into account the consumer price index, which currently stands at 9.7%. Our inflation rate currently stands at 6.4%, and food inflation in the month of May stands at a whopping 13.5% for this quarter. Inflation has to be built into any working budget. In layman's terms, in order for this year's allocation to be equivalent to last year's allocation, it should have increased by at least 8%. Instead, it has regressed by at least 8.3%. At the end of March, accruals and payables stood at 4.76 billion. Subtract this from your total allocation and you're left with 23.5 billion. Of this, a whopping 81% makes up cost of employment, 19.02 billion to be exact. A paltry 9% of the budget remains for goods and services. This is less than 3 billion rand. This will, I predict, last until July if the department is lucky. So for all the strides made to improve fiscal discipline, the reduced budget means that accruals and payables will again become unmanageable. This is what a reduced operational budget looks like in the ledger. But how is it felt on the ground? At Frontier Hospital, it means a 70% vacancy rate. A 36-bed ward will only have 1 professional nurse per shift instead of 9. There will be nobody to help you use a bedpan, and there will be nobody to hold your hand when you die. In EMS, it means hundreds of ambulances parked in the yards of garages that have not been paid for repairs, like the 21 EMS vehicles at NTT in Buffalo City Metro, 14 of which are desperately needed ambulances. It means that there will be more young mothers like Yolandi Froelich, who lost her baby while waiting for an ambulance, and shortly afterwards lost her own life from complications. It means no aeromedical service again, and if and when the contract is finalized, please do not schedule your car accidents for the night time, as the service will only operate during the day. It means that mental health patients will continue to suffer at the hands of a system that simply cannot cater for them, despite endless paper trails declaring that it can. It means that life-saving chronic medication will once again not be available because once again pharmaceutical companies will not be paid, and you as a chronic patient will once again become a defaulter and your life will once again be at risk. It means that patients will continue to receive a substandard care and medico-legal claims, the root of all evil, will continue to flourish. So what is to be done? We as the Democratic Alliance, the party with by far the best track record for managing finances without stealing, propose the following. Firstly, provision is made in Section 38(1)(b) of the Public Finance Management Act for the establishment of appropriate mechanisms to identify and manage risks such as medico-legal claims. The provincial government would need to A, identify the risk, B, determine an appropriate level of funding to mitigate the risk, C, establish the reserve fund, D, develop policies and procedures in accordance with the PFMA for dealing with claims against the fund, and E, monitor and evaluate the efficacy of the self-insurance mechanism. The Premier, instead of cozying up to allegedly corrupt, cool drink loving cadres who were complicit in the financial ruin of the health department, should prioritize the self-insurance mechanism instead. Secondly, according to a High Court ruling, Treasury was complicit in the bungling of medico-legal claims. They must be held to account for their role in failing to ring-fence funds to deal with these claims. The Democratic Alliance believes that it is incumbent upon Treasury to ring-fence 1.5 billion rand per annum over the medium term to settle the department's accruals and payables from outside the health budget so that adequate healthcare services can resume.
You have 2
Treasury
minutes
must
remaining,
not
Honourable
be
Member.
allowed to steer, thank you, Madam Speaker. Treasury must not be allowed to steer the Titanic straight into the iceberg and then abandon the ship and watch it sink from their lifeboats. The Democratic Alliance rejects this budget, which has been crafted to boost non-essential programs like 6 and 8 at the expense of essential life-saving programs, and we will reject it until Treasury makes amends for their failures and resolves the accruals and payables over the medium term. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Cowley. From the EFF, Honourable Madikizela. Your 8 minutes starts now.
Thank you, Speaker. Ndibulise once more as we respond to this budget, this committee. It is in our view that the report is a reflection of a dysfunctional department. It is a dysfunctional department and also a leaderless department. It is in our view that this is the most unfortunate department ever since the government of Eastern Cape has been established. There has been never an MEC with a vision, with a proper focus and understanding of what to do in this department. On daily basis, we read, we get informed about misfortunes of this department. For example, in Nelson Mandela, there has been a collapse of emergency services. In most of the rural clinics, hospitals, as opposed to the narrative that there must be an ambulance per 10,000 population, there are clinics that have no access totally to ambulance. In recent exposure that we have been exposed to as the EFF, there has been a clinic that has had no electricity for almost 2 years. As the EFF, our own councillor had to intervene and pay ESCOM the bill of that clinic in Ward 17, Port St. John's, Mchaya. And no one is seemed to have been uncomfortable by that. If there was a leader in this department, someone would have been uncomfortable and made sure that these things don't happen anymore. In the last 2 weeks in Jogabi, there have been non-medical supplies for most of the clinics there until the intervention of our own leadership in that area that conducted the department and made sure that there are supplies in those clinics. You can imagine, Madam Speaker, that amongst those medical supplies, there are supplies that are required for chronic diseases. Imagine without an access for almost 2 weeks on a chronic disease medicine, what would happen? Let's agree, Madam Speaker, that we are in a crisis when it comes to this department. A simple idea that would have come into the mind if there was a leadership in this clinics, in this department. We were supposed to have by now, as the rural province dominated by African people, we're supposed to have integrated an indigenous knowledge system as part of the interventions in the health. But because of our colonized kind of education, we would never think of integrating such a system, because you see it as a darkness to integrate African medicines in the health systems. So those things you definitely would never take serious because of your colonized mindset. We have observed in most of these health facilities that there are other serious crises in these health facilities is the shortage of staff. Most of the hospitals are short of almost 40% of staff complement. It's a crisis that was supposed to have been seen if we had leadership in this department. The infrastructure of the hospitals in most of the areas, in almost all districts in the Eastern Cape, is collapsing. Most of the hospitals are collapsing because there are no infrastructure coordinators, especially at the district level. There is no clue on what must be done in terms of the infrastructure. This is happening because both the departments that are responsible for infrastructure have collapsed and are leaderless, including the Public Works Department. Remember, Honorable Speaker, this department we are talking about is one of the departments that has lost a portion of its conditional grant. It's a typical example of a leaderless institution that loses a conditional grant under the circumstances where we are in dire need of these resources to assist these hospitals to function. We have mentioned before, we even wrote to the MEC, telling the MEC that the
Honourable Member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
we have written to the MEC, told the MEC that the St. Patrick Hospital is in the blink of collapse. The arrogant response we received and is full of negligence and ignorance that says there is no collapse in the St. Patrick's Hospital. While abantu bezaliswa babantu bangakho professional estradweni, but those things are not considered by the leaderless institution. All Saint Hospital has no water currently, no linen, no food, but no one is aware about that because we are led by ignorant people. Same thing with Komga. Even today, the clinics do not open 24 hours. But because we are led by a certain level of mediocre, we have no reason, no reason absolutely to support this budget. Actually, we have no reason to support the views of a non-existent government. We will only see that by the howling when people are told a reality. They will howl and howl. They will not bring a substantial debate and say this is a reality as opposed to what you are presenting. We must allow you, comrades, we must allow you, members of this legislature, to howl and continue to be ignorant. Thank you very much.
Honorable Komonye from the ANC, your 18 minutes starts now.
The Honorable Speaker, I don't know what informs that. The Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Acting Premier and MECs present here today, members of the Provincial Legislature as led by the Chief Whip, stakeholders and administrative leadership as led by the DG, ladies and gentlemen, a good day. It is my singular honor, Honorable Speaker, to represent the African National Congress for the first time since I joined this legislature. And I'm saying for the first time since I joined this legislature because I became a member of the Health Portfolio Committee for the first time in August last year, and I'm only debating for the first time. So if I do well, please congratulate the African National Congress for having made all the resolutions so much more clear that I could even understand. If I do not do well, please understand that this is my maiden speech. I am very grateful to have a contribution in this very strategic and important debate on the allocation of resources towards the realization of the provision of healthcare services to the masses of our people, particularly those that are poor and depend on government to access better healthcare services. Honorable Speaker, this is a debate that is taking place on a very important month in South Africa, a month where young people took it upon themselves to contribute towards the emancipation of the oppressed. Frantz Fanon once said, and I quote, "Each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betrayed," close quote. The generation of Tsietsi Mashinini, Tibilo Motapanyana, and many others had a mission to liberate the generation, their generation and ours, from Patu education, and I dare say they fulfilled their mission. I want to argue, Honorable Speaker, that we are a generation of change leaders, both in the left and the right sides of this House, left and right here in the ideological sense, not in the sitting arrangement. We are a generation that is entrusted by the people of this province not to really be petty, because that would not change the lives of the people of this province. Those that regard themselves as having the responsibility of opposing the African National Congress must understand its vision and the documents that are premised on that vision, or that vision which is premised on those documents, so that when they oppose, they know very well what they are opposing. And therefore, Honorable Speaker and honorable members of the House, allow me to indicate upfront that I do not intend to bore you with the details of the report, as the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee did an excellent job in tabling the report to the House with its finding as well as recommendations. Mine is really to take you through the strategic policy documents of the ANC, as well as conference resolutions of the ANC, as they relate to health. So I humbly ask the honorable members of the opposition to listen very carefully, because for you to oppose, you must know where we're going. And ours is that we reaffirm in the previous conferences, including the 55th National Conference, that health remains our priority as a ruling party. So if you oppose that, you then must tell us what else must we prioritize if we do not prioritize health. Yabona ke Honorable Speaker, bengingazimiselanga kuba nochuku namhlanje because I can xa ndifuna. But here allegations were made by Honorable Cowley that the department has been appointing CEOs through catered deployment, and those CEOs are incompetent. Now the question is, uyenzile na i-audit to confirm what she is claiming here? Because I can tell you for free that at least I know that there's a CEO, and this is not the only CEO that has been appointed in this term, that is very competent, a medical doctor that is running Cecilia Makiwane. I was there this morning. Running Cecilia Makiwane, and I've never seen that CEO in ANC gatherings. Now you come here and tell us that we are appointing through cadre deployment. Until and unless you have done an audit and give us a list of those CEOs that are ANC comrades, that are deployed and are incompetent, asizoyivuma loo nto leyo. It's just an allegation, and it's a silly one at it. Before I get to the few areas indirectly in the report, Honorable Speaker, allow me to touch on just something that is not included in the report. The manner in which we handle or manage outbreaks
Honorable members,
and or pandemics
do not disturb
in
honorable
our
members.
country.
Honorable Camilo Benjamin and Honorable Kasim, you can take your discussions outside.
Before I get to a few areas indirectly in the report, Honorable Speaker, allow me to touch on just something that is not included in the report. The manner in which we handle or manage outbreaks and or pandemics in our country and the province in particular. On the 4th of May 2023, the DG of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros, announced that the International Health Regulations Emergency Committee has come to a determination that COVID-19 no longer constitute a public health of international concern. COVID-19 has been the most devastating pandemic since the Spanish flu. It has altered how government delivers services and has caused a number of social ills, some of which have not left us. But COVID-19 has also taught us better ways to manage a pandemic and kept the infection rate. I have no doubt that the threat or outbreak of cholera in Tshwane and elsewhere in the country will be swiftly managed owing to the lessons that we have learned when we were dealing with COVID-19. It is also commendable that the Eastern Cape Department of Health has already trained healthcare practitioners to effectively manage cholera in the province in case it breaks out. Earlier in the speech, Honorable Speaker, I made an indication that I will highlight a few ideological points referencing strategic documents of the ANC and conference resolutions. The first point I want to touch is what we now know as national health insurance, which really speaks to universal health coverage that is premised on primary health care. 31 years ago, the ANC developed a strategic document which tabulated the strategic vision of the liberation movement that was to assume state power, and this was in 1992. This document is called Ready to Govern, and it envisaged a health systems as follows, and I quote, "The provision of equitable health care should be guided by the aspirations of our people as enshrined in the Freedom Charter and by the principles which reflect the primary health care approach adopted by the World Health Organization and the United Nations Children's Fund of Alma Ata in 1978. The primary health care approach is essentially that of community development. It aims to reduce inequalities in access to health care services. It promotes equitable distribution based on appropriate technology and integrates the many sectors of modern life, such as education and housing. Further, it is based on full community participation." Close quote. I put it to you, honorable members of the House, that inspired by Ready to Govern, we have long abandoned the debate on whether to pursue NHI or not. Our focus is now funding the NHI and ensuring its implementation. There is overwhelming evidence, and of course there are still those who want to take us back to that debate of whether should we pursue NHI or not. There is overwhelming evidence, and if you can look into the Cuban healthcare system, compare it with the USA one or even the South African one for that matter. There is overwhelming evidence that a healthcare system that firstly promotes primary health care and ensures universal access is much more cheaper than the curative one, or one that accommodates two different platforms in the form of public and private healthcare system. We note the objections towards full implementation of NHI, and we are well aware that they are informed by ideological undertones that as the primary focus of other parties is to pursue open market principles such as maximizing profit in the healthcare sector as well as pharmaceuticals, even at the expense of protecting lives. A practical example is the deterrent of Kitla Pila Pharmaceutical State-Owned Company Limited operations by stakeholders and some government officials as a threat to the private pharmaceutical sector. The second point, Honourable Speaker, is that which I would term as sins of incumbency. By this I mean, and I'm providing aid to those who are not in government. Sins of incumbency means these challenges that we are confronted with solely because we are in government or we are the government of the day. And the DA will understand these as they are governing in the Western Cape. The following are examples of these challenges. The norm of one emergency vehicle to every 10,000 people in the community. This is not a norm that is standardized at a national level. It's an international norm. And if you are in government, even if UDM would be in government tomorrow, God forbid, they would still have to abide by this norm. So it's sins of incumbency. It's not because we are weak as the governing party. It is norms that are applied across the globe. It's not going to happen, don't worry. Even though the norm cannot be changed, or rather it would be a protracted process to engage the World Health Organization to change this norm, the ANC applauds the department for the strides it is making in better management of the available vehicles in order to curb abuse as well as better planned provision in areas such as Joe Gabi district. We were informed as the committee that there are interventions that are being made to ensure that there is access to medical vehicles in the area.
We have 5 minutes remaining, Honourable Member.
Another example of sins of thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. Another example of sins of incumbency is the medical legal claims. They are happening even in the Western Cape. They come, Honourable Cowley comes here and say the Premier is having juice or tea with whoever that is corrupt in order to avoid dealing with medical legal claims. They are happening, go and read, they are happening even in the Western Cape. And I suppose, I don't know whether it's Windy or whoever is governing there, is having the tea as well, if that's the case. Oh, he's in the United States, but he left Cowley here. That's fine. The issue of the medical legal claims is not happening only in the Eastern Cape. And as the ANC, we support the initiatives by the department, supported by the Office of the Premier, in capping the exposure caused by the medical legal claims. The ANC has a resolution charging the National Assembly with a responsibility to pass the sector requires the following: proper financial management, availability of drugs, infrastructure, human resource management, cleanliness, and many other aspects. There are a lot of challenges in this sector. However, the committee is working with the National Portfolio Committee in finding ways to assist the strides made by the department in turning the tide. The ANC supports the report and further supports the passing of the budget, fully aware of the challenges of accruals and payables. Not passing the budget equates to standing still and not taking off against the wind, with an understanding that the moment of turbulence will pass and we will reach our destination. Those who are saying, let's not pass this budget, are equally saying we should not allocate funds for medicines tomorrow, and therefore there would be no medicines in this province. There would be no payment of medical doctors and non-clinical staff. So if you are saying, because the budget is too little, let's not pass it, you are equally saying, let us halt and wait until there is enough money. Even in other provinces, there is no sufficient money. Even in other departments, there is no sufficient money. And therefore, as this leadership in this House, we can't therefore say there mustn't be work that is being done. The ANC supports the budget. Amandla.
Thank you so much, Honourable Komonye. We now call upon the MEC, Honourable Meth. Your 10 minutes starts now, Honourable MEC.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I want to greet all the honorable members of this House. Honorable Speaker, I think Honorable Matigizela needs to visit one of our institutions because it's got a chronic illness. It is called Mythomania and Pseudologia Fantastica. Allow me to acknowledge and appreciate the oversight role played by the Health Portfolio Committee. This pivotal role cannot be overstated as the committee assists the Eastern Cape Department of Health in ensuring a responsive and quality health service to the millions of the people who rely on the public sector for their health needs. The report as presented by the Portfolio Committee Chairperson, Honorable Nyalambisa, is duly noted, welcomed and appreciated as it provides yet another perspective and reflection on the services we provide. It also identifies focus areas within the available budget of 28.1 billion rand for 2023-2024 financial year. We welcome the concern of the committee on the gravity of the financial challenges that have resulted from the lump sum settlements of the historic medical legal claims. We have made major inroads with respect to capping the hemorrhage of funds from the budget during 2021-22 and 2022-2023. And in controlling the accruals and payables that threaten the day-to-day operations of the department. This has been achieved despite the decreased budget allocation to the departments year on year and in the face of an average consumer price index of around 7.1%. A case has been made at the recent second Presidential Health Summit as well as to the National Department of Health that the Eastern Cape Department of Health must be incentivized and assisted with a historic debt to give us a fighting chance at providing the best and safest care to the people of the province. The department will continue working with the provincial and national treasuries to find remedies for this historic debt, given the measurable improvements already being realized through the health turnaround strategy. I appreciate the support of the Portfolio Committee in pleading our case at the appropriate platforms in this regard. And I also appreciate that even the honorable member of the DA, our shadow, my shadow MEC, is in that mode today to just plead for interventions than playing, using this platform to play these political, cheap political scores, wanting to gain and score. At least she is a leader here today, except for this issue of a collapse. We don't know where it comes from. The department will continue working also with the other relevant stakeholders, and also we are saying we are processing an application for the condonation of the unauthorized expenditure associated with the medical legal settlements through SCOPA, and we welcome that this is being monitored by this House. The state is directed by Section 27 of the Constitution of our country to ensure equitable access to affordable basic health services by the general population. Madam Speaker, we are miles into the preparation for NHI. Our infrastructure upgrades and maintenance plans that are unfolding are just one feather in the cap, in addition to many other programs already running smoothly. There is much work to be done, but our multi-year program to bring our facilities up to habitable state is underway. The department launched its youth maintenance program as part of its cleanup campaign, aiming to bring our health facilities across the province up to habitable state. The target is to create a minimum of 1,120 job opportunities for youth within 23-24 financial year at an investment of 75 million rand on stipends and tools of trade. The department kickstarted this program in Nelson Mandela Bay with a combination of electricians, plumbers, painters, carpenters, clinical engineers, and appointed them to Livingston, P, Provincial, and Doranginza. In addition, 42 ground staff have also been appointed, utilizing extended public works program to assist with the cleanup, landscaping, and grounds work at these same health facilities. Ultimately, the department aims to appoint 140 youths in the Nelson Mandela drainage area, with the artisan and grounds teams allocated to hubs provided with personal protective clothing, hand tools, material, and supplies for them to be able to undertake necessary on-site minor maintenance, repairs, and the cleanup of all our health facilities and we are aiming to roll out the same number to all 8 districts. The department has allocated funding for appropriate healthcare technologies in line with our facility needs and to maintain existing health technologies. This includes commissioning of new facilities, providing equipment for 28 priority district hospitals and ideal clinics realization and maintenance program. At the end of this financial 2022-2023 financial year, 275 million rand was spent paying various medical technology service providers. The department spent 67.3 million rand to date on various medical equipment that address maternal and child-related challenges throughout the province. The equipment procured includes the theater tables in our cesarean sections, the theater lights, anesthetic machines, diathermy units, resuscitation warmers to receive our newly born babies. Maternity and neonatal equipment was procured, focusing on preventative equipment such as ultrasounds, CTGs, infant warmers, incubators, fetal Dopplers, and 20 transport incubators were procured. Monitoring and resuscitation equipment were also part of this package to ensure availability of monitoring equipment for admitted patients and resuscitation equipment when an emergency arises. This includes defibrillators, vital signs monitors, high care monitors, suctions, and resuscitation cribs for the newborns. A further 21 million rand was invested in oral health for upgrading of dental suits in 21 facilities. We have assisted in equipping our EMS services by further procuring ambulance medical equipment to a value of 20 million rand, which includes the equipment of transport incubators, transport ventilators, and defibrillators, mobile ECGs, and suction machines. The rehabilitation unit was assisted with procurement of 381 wheelchairs and various accessories to the value of 13.3 million rand. There were 638 cerebral palsy wheelchairs at the value of 6.9 million rand, 1,743 chairs for adults and children at 6.8 million rand. 25 digital X-rays units were procured for various facilities within the province at a total investment of 60.8 million rand. This will result in an improved throughput from 35 to 90 patients per day capability, less radiation exposure for patients and staff, and savings on printing with reduced patient waiting times anticipated where these modern radiology equipment are installed. The ARP of our department targeted
you have 2 minutes remaining.
2,941 posts, which we could not fill because of the budget constraints. We only filled 1,900 plus the additional 640, reprioritizing the other areas like your Joe Kabi, which were supposed to be assisted even outside the plan that we had. So we had to redirect our funds to that. Despite this huge investment in infrastructure and human resource, we recognize the challenges that we face. The quadruple burden of disease remains, with injuries due to trauma and gender-based violence increasing exponentially. Mental illness has been exacerbated by COVID-19, and as people live longer, the incidence of non-communicable diseases of lifestyle such as stroke, heart attacks, hypertension, diabetes, and cancers is anticipated to increase towards 2030. We have also added more youth zones in our clinics, and we are targeting to add 200 more this financial year. We are doing the work and we are continuing regardless of the challenges that we find ourselves in. As a rural province, it is sometimes a challenge to attract specialists. For years, not having proper staff accommodation was also a contributing factor, but we have built state-of-the-art accommodation in many facilities across our province. Allow me, Honorable Speaker, to say the NHI is here with us, and we are happy that our Honorable Minister told the lawmakers last week, Tuesday, during the debate on the bill, that 16% of the population have private medical insurance, account for 51% of the national expenditure on medical treatment, while the balance of the money is spent on other 84% of the population. This has led to a situation where the public health system is under tremendous pressure. Medical insurance in the Eastern Cape, only 10% are insured, and the 90% depends on the public health sector. It is for that reason why we, as the Eastern Cape province, we support the NHI. But we do want to reiterate that we'll face this together, and I'm confident that through our collective wisdom and power, we'll realize quality health and care for all during our lifetime and for all generations to come. And we are a leadership that is present. We are here. We are leaders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable MEC. Honorable members, I put the report. Thank you. Honorable members, we will now break for lunch and we will return at 14:25.